It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Alex, Jason, they're all here as we get ready for the big Apple event next week. Apple's going kicking and screaming into the world of Type-C, according to Mark Gurman. But is it a real story or just a made-up one? We'll also talk about big price hikes possible for the iPhone 15. And Apple says, we're really not that big in Europe. Really? It's all coming up next on MacBreak.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 885, recorded Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. 30 inches of gooseneck. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Melissa. More than 10,000 clients worldwide rely on Melissa for full-spectrum data quality and ID verification software. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. And by Delete Me. Reclaim your privacy by removing personal data from online sources. Protect yourself and reduce the risk of fraud, spam, cybersecurity threats, and more by visiting joindeleteme.com/twit. And don't forget to use the code TWIT for 20% off. And by ZocDoc, the free app where you can find and book appointments online with thousands of top-rated, patient-reviewed physicians and specialists. Filter specifically for ones who take your insurance, are located near you, and treat almost any condition. Go to ZocDoc.com/MacBreak and download the ZocDoc app for free. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we study, observe, dissect, disseminate, and ruminate on the news from Apple, of which there's a little bit, but really it's all about next week. In fact, Jason Snell from sixcolors.com, you were sort of saying this is the calm before the storm.
Yeah, trying to pace myself just to, get some protein, stay hydrated. Don't do too much. Don't pull any muscles. Just
Sleep
get ready for the big
all the
sprint.
8 hours every night.
Get plenty of sleep. Do all those things because, starting next week, everything gets pretty wild.
Zoinks.
So, which is great. It's why we're here, but still. So trying to keep it together this week and not do too much.
Andy Anatko, what are you doing to prepare for September 12th?
Mostly clearing the decks for like 2 days beforehand to make sure that I don't have anything else to do on that day.
Yeah,
it's always weird because I'm lucky that I'm not working for like one of these news sites where it's like you have to post 30 seconds after something comes out in the stream, but nonetheless it's like here's what I'm going to be saying I'm going to be doing during the live stream. Here's what I want to prepare to be ready to post like immediately after the live stream, and then I need to start like lining up the people that I want to talk to maybe explain things that confused me about the live stream. And then I'm on like GBH. Fortunately, I'm on GBH like 2 or 3 days after that, so I can be 2 or 3 days smarter than I was on Tuesday.
I am trying to figure out what color sheet to bring for the green screen because I'm going to be doing the show from next week from my mom's house, which is kind of messy. And I think I have to go in her long disused office because that's where the Ethernet will be. And
short depth of field goes a long way.
Yeah, look at that.
The pile of junk.
Look at that.
There.
I'm going to bring the OBSBot camera. I know I should have bought the other one, but I got that one and a good microphone and just cross my fingers. You know what is missing? And all three of you figured this out. By the way, that's Alex Lindsay, who is the king of this kind of thing. Is lighting. I can't carry a bunch of fixtures with me.
I use those little NAND lights, the 6Cs, the Pavo tube.
Yeah.
6Cs.
How portable are those?
Super portable. They're like a foot long and then they're like a little circle. It's about 2 inches in diameter.
So I get a couple of these. How many do I need?
I carry 4 of them, but we really only need 2.
I'm trying to do this in a carry-on, you understand? I'm also burdened with 8 pounds of See's candy for Mom. So.
My carry-on, I have to admit, my carry-on is, I have a carry-on dedicated just to my little...
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
So it's got all the little bits and pieces, but because it's got a switcher and, USB.
I know I'm not bringing a switcher because we'll switch it here. I'm just going to zoom in like you guys. I'll be like... I'll be like you, the unwashed masses out there in the real world. Zooming
Finally,
in.
now you know what it's like. Now you know what it's like.
I do this once every 10 years just to remind myself how it is for little people.
What I really wish, I'm going to be in Cupertino that day, obviously, but I wish it was a day that I could just come up to Petaluma because I could just stage an insurrection. And
you could take over. Make this incomparable noise.
I'd be like, back in your box, Leo, back in your box.
I wouldn't resist, to be honest with you. I'd go, okay.
I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, if you insist. It's all yours.
So comfortable once you're sitting
Here's the keys to the studio. No, it's not because it's broken in, shall we say. Yeah. How many years, John, have I been sitting in this? This is from the Brick House, right? So it's more than 10. 13 years, and it's feeling it. These chairs were not meant to be sat in for more than 5. All right, enough foolishness. September 12th is the day. 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We will be streaming here live, as many will. I know. Are you going to do your office hours thing that you do? It's kind of fun because so what we do is it'll be Micah and me sitting and watching the keynote with you and talking about it. But you guys, it's almost like a group activity.
Yes, it is. It's like usually between 100 and 150 of us.
Wow.
Jumped into what we call after hours. And
it's like the overflow room for the Apple event.
It is an overflow room where you're allowed to talk. So what happens is that you hear a couple of us talking about what we're seeing. And so we're watching it. We don't watch it. We don't stream it into Zoom. We just listen to it on whatever device we all have. So our sync is a little off. But outside of that, we all just use the second ear experience, quote unquote, is the Zoom. And we all sit there and just talk about what is being released. But we also talk about like, oh, I see. I think they're using green screen there and that you could never do that in that building. And this is, like, did you see what they did with the camera shot? And so it's a little bit more than just the products themselves. It's usually how they do it. It's usually in whatever Craig's big move will be that has all the effects. So
he's got to now, right? He's got 2 things he has to do: talk about his crack team and do some dad jokes. And so one was him running and his hair. And what was last time?
He played guitar on the last one.
He played guitar. He had like an 8-head,
which he can do. Like that's the funny thing is that he actually can play the guitar. So that made it funnier. But so we don't know what's going to happen. Those are the last 2, I think.
Very funny. Apple apparently is streaming a countdown. Let me just see. Well, I don't see a streaming countdown. Is this it?
Yeah.
Is it
3 arms?
There it is. Isn't that funny? In my memory, there were 7 arms. Just a lot is the word.
You're thinking Cheap Trick.
Many. Yeah, I'm thinking Cheap Trick. So that we'll be looking forward to that. Make a note, put that on your bingo card. Craig Federighi, crazy stuff, dad jokes, crack team. We're going to see an iPhone 15 rather. Pretty sure of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably at this point, I think it's safe to say Type C. Although Mark Gurman, there he is. Here he comes with the hair. He's a $6 billion man. Oh, he's running his fingers through it.
He needs to be carrying a sledgehammer.
Thor. Mark Gurman says Apple's going kicking and screaming to Type C. They are only doing it. Well, here's his headline from his Bloomberg newsletter. Apple is set to embrace an iPhone charger it didn't want.
Yeah. I thought that was super interesting because I imagined that they're going to have to they're putting Type C in everything. It's going to come to the iPhone at some point. His newsletter story is that they plan to simply wait out Lightning for the next 2, 3, 4 years until they're ready to release a completely portless phone, which has been rumored for a long time. It would be a stupid idea if it weren't for Apple, because they can couch a stupid idea in terms of courage and because we're going where the puck is going to be, not where the puck actually is. But I still, I know I'm talking about something that hasn't been announced, and if it happens, won't happen for another 3 or 4 years. But I'm a hard sell on the idea of this being in any way a move that's going to improve anything for users. That's like,
it seems a little petulant of Apple to say, In fact, Gurman's phrasing is a little weird. The company has an ironclad rule when it's introducing a new product or dealing with the media. It always wants to operate from a position of strength.
No kidding. That's called marketing. That's PR. Good. Yeah. I don't love this report. I'm deeply skeptical of it, actually. I'm sure there are people inside Apple who don't like the fact that this was mandated. And I know that Mark has reported before about this dream that Apple has of the portless iPhone, which I've always thought was kind of BS, or at the very least a kind of fantasy that would be eventually down the road a long time. In fact, I don't have his sources. I just am really skeptical that when he refers to Apple's strategy monolithically, I don't believe it. I'm sure people were against it or were arguing just to hold out for this magical future where there was a portless iPhone, which I'm very skeptical of. But my feeling is if it hadn't gone so badly 11 years ago, this would have happened way sooner. And
11 years ago was when Lightning came out.
By the Lightning transition, exactly, that they're like, no, I don't want to go through that again. And with this EU thing, they basically are forced to do it. But, I don't know. I think that Apple does have a dream of going quote unquote portless, but even then, I think it's probably a magnetic connector like MagSafe with some data pins on it that are actually like a smart connector on an iPad. I'm really skeptical of a completely walled off phone that you can't plug a plug into. So when I hear a story like this that builds on that and then says they're very offended that they had to do this, they were waiting for that promised land in the future. It's like, I don't buy it. I think it's more likely that they would have gone sooner if they didn't feel like they know what's coming, right? Which is there's going to be all those stories about, Apple is ruined, just wants to make money and they made me change all my cables out. And like those stories are coming because they're inevitable. They'll be all over the place.
I think it's less about them. I guess I don't really believe that they're kicking streaming either. I think that they just didn't want to spend any time on it because they know that they're going to get rid of it. So they were kind of like, why go through a transition that's only going to last 3 or 4 years if they think that they're going to go down that path. And I do agree that most likely anything that had got rid of the port would probably have data pins or the ability to pass data over that. I think the hard part for them is that going from Lightning to transfer speeds that you might get through a non-port, it's probably pretty equal. You could probably make that data work. Going through USB-C is harder, because USB-C has such a much higher, or even if they went to Thunderbolt, has just a much higher transfer rate. So you get used to that. And I think that the Ultras, potentially maybe only the Ultras, but the Ultras and the Pro Maxes would be the ones that would probably always have USB-C. And I think that they might have been always going that way because if you're going to start recording ProRes, you really need USB-C. Yeah. You can't keep on building up this idea of ProRes or ProRes RAW or any of those things and still use the kind of connectors we have right now. So I think that it was kind of coming either way. Yep. In that area.
I mean, I'm with you, Jason, in that I don't think that if this is a real thing, that they were ever going to do something where there was absolutely no way to send to send electrons from an outside source directly inside the thing. There's always going to be something like pogo pins, but even that, I think that's just a stupid, arrogant, dogmatic idea. I mean, the thing is, I don't know. It's going to be fascinating. It's the engineering underneath creating an iPhone with no holes in it pales in comparison with the 3, 4, 5 years that they're going to need to engineer the excuses that they're going to present during the rollout event about why this is such a great idea and why this is a consumer forward, consumer friendly approach. When actually it's nothing but downside for the consumer. It's like I think the only thing that's obvious is that they say, oh well, gosh, the dust incursion and moisture incursion it'll increase the longevity of the phone. And say, well, you're already IP68 resistant. What are you going to be like? IP70, IP73, IP74, that those things don't exist. And it's not like you're saying, oh, well, because we're making this thing so much more durable, congratulations. We're going to make, like, if it gets dunked in water and needs to be fixed, that's covered in Apple Care from now on. No, they're not going to do that. This is going to be their case where they made a decision that made the iPhone easier for them to manufacture, that makes it more interesting as a project for them. But once again, creates a situation in which they're taking they're taking a means of connection that always works. It's you take a cable here, you plug it into there, electrons go from there to there. It always works, to a system where it will work if the following set of conditions is met. And that's such a huge downgrade for consumers that people should be, again, I can't imagine them pulling this off in a way that I'm not going to be making fun of them for this.
And it's slow and inefficient. I mean, that's the other thing is even if you can just charge wirelessly via a puck, it generates a lot of waste heat,
right?
Which sometimes, depending on your environment, might actually make the phone stop charging because it gets too hot. It is slow compared to the cable. I use MagSafe most of the time, but like I just have a hard time picturing that. And Alex's point is a good one. I could see a scenario where maybe they wanted to play out the string with Lightning on, you could maybe do it on the low end phone, but he's absolutely right. It's already ridiculous that they've got this video capability and that just huge video files. And then they're like, well, good luck. With Lightning. Slow. And so to have the USB-C connector, which is everybody's familiar with it. I don't know. I'm fascinated by the way Mark has reported this, but I'm not sure I buy that. I'm sure there are people who felt this way inside Apple, but is that like the monolithic Apple response here? I'm dubious of that.
I don't know if there is a monolithic response.
No,
Apple.
there can't be.
I think that we think that there is, and we think that Apple is Apple. But, I've met a lot of folks at Apple, and they all have pretty strong opinions, and they're not necessarily monolithic, about how. So it depends on who you're talking to with any of these things as to what we are going to do, kind of thing. Unless you are Tim Cook and a handful of other people, you really don't know.
In fact, you could argue that the way Mark's story is written is that his sources are people who lost the argument, right?
Right.
Where there are people inside Apple who are like, no, USB-C is good. And they were fighting back and forth. No, let's just keep Lightning until we get to portless. And like, no, we should switch to USB-C. And then at some point they decided to switch to USB-C. Maybe whether it was prodded by the EU or not, doesn't really matter. Those people could easily be the ones who are feeding Mark Gurman their story about how we weren't going to do this, even if some of them were.
And again, I think that the reality is it was always going to go to USB-C for the Ultra and the Pro Max, most likely. Definitely the Ultra, maybe the Pro Max. Mm-hmm. So that was always going to happen because you just can't do what you need to do with those if they keep on selling those phones.
Speed of transfer.
Yeah, and so the main thing is what we're going to do with the less expensive phones. And the other thing that they will probably bring up that I think is so far valid, just because it's the only way people are getting in. The only way people are hacking phones is physical access to that port. The only way they can get into the iPhone is a physical access to that port. Taking that port away makes it considerably harder to hack an iPhone. Like as far as like closing gates and welding them shut, getting rid of that port is a big piece of Apple being able to make sure that it's impenetrable as they move forward.
Yeah, but now we're talking about like. From my understanding, a very small increase in the security and integrity of people exfiltrating information off a device they have physical possession of, and is that going to be a better upside for most people than I'm totally screwed. I don't have a cable with me. I don't have a special Pogo cable with me to charge my phone with, and woe is me, I didn't happen to bring in my laptop bag a wireless charging device. Or I decided that I just think that the massive inconvenience that's going to happen, that there are going to be plenty of people who are going to be like, hey, no, it's great. I needed to buy a new USB battery bank anyway. My new battery bank just simply has Qi charging in addition to all the other stuff. Let's even ignore everything that Jason was saying about how it's inefficient, it's slow, it generates heat in your bag, all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, but what if I don't want to I like my battery bank. I don't need to spend $50, $60, $70 on a new battery bank. I was really excited about the fact that I could now reuse all of the USB-C stuff that I use for literally everything else I have that has a digital pulse. It's I don't know. I have a hard time coming away from the idea that this is just dogmatic arrogance. If this is something that Apple actually wants.
Notably, Mark doesn't say my sources or according to people in the know.
It's a newsletter. Yeah.
It's very pundity. The whole piece is pretty pundity.
I have to say he's gotten a little bit fast and loose. Like I know Bloomberg has rules, but he doesn't seem to be following any of the rules here.
I think when he's reporting, he's solid and he follows the rules. But I think that there is just as an observer of his work from the outside, I think Bloomberg also wants him to do some punditing, especially in the newsletter, which is where he breaks news. But he also is recapping old stories of his, which is sort of what he's doing this time as a way to set the table for the iPhone. And his punditry. I mean, look, I'm not going to judge somebody else's punditry. It's fine, but it's not his reporting, and I think his reporting is solid. So that's the challenge there of him being in the Bloomberg environment, which is a different editorial environment than when he was at 9 to 5 Mac back in the day, and they have their own quirky rules and all of that. But some of it, when he is specific, I think you can see his diligence, but there are other times where he is pulling back and telling a story, and that's when I start to say, like, well, but who? Like, who said that?
This feels like that story. Yeah. Based on years of reporting about these kinds of things, he says it'll be a PR debacle, but I'm with you, Andy. I can't wait. I think finally I get rid of the last little bit of Lightning non-Type-C charging. I mean,
I think some regular people are going to be unhappy with it for various reasons, but I just think it's going to blow over.
Well, and I think I can't possibly imagine that there's always going to be people that are going to be upset with any change that gets made. However, I can't imagine this isn't where Apple is taking. Hey, the news story is we decided to do away with a completely proprietary standard that only we support, and we're embracing the thing that you likely already have stuff that already works. We're not telling you wasn't like the transition to Lightning where we're saying all of your old stuff doesn't work. You're going to need to buy absolutely brand new stuff, and you can only buy it from us or from people who have gone through a special Works with iPhone program with us. This is basically making sure that all of your stuff is more democratic, more Catholic, more ecumenical, all that sort of stuff. And people are going to complain, but I don't think this is as valid a complaint as it would be like when people were saying that, hey, suddenly all my favorite headphones don't work with my iPhone anymore unless I buy a $30 adapter and remember to bring it with me whenever I go.
Yeah, I think that it's I think that they also, the fact that it took so long to go to USB-C, most of us I have probably 40 USB-C of different lengths next to me on my desk.
I have two sitting in my car that I forgot.
The biggest problem I have is that I have like all these wires that come from my car to plug into things and everything else. And I have a wireless charger in my car, wireless charger here, and I have to admit that I've gotten kind of used to that. But the main thing is that I think that if they had done it 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been frustrated because I wouldn't have a lot of USB-C or as much as I do now. Now it's the one outlier. Like it's the one thing that I have that is using something other than Thunderbolt or USB-C. As far as made for iPhone, it'll be interesting to see. I think it'll charge that way. I think devices will be different because I have noticed that there's something about 17 that is kind of closing off access to video out of my phone. So I, it's like something's afoot. Like they're going, I don't identify what you're talking to, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything with that. And so it's an interesting, something's changing in the way that they use that port, even though it's Lightning. I feel like there's something, they're working on something, but I don't know what it is.
Well,
and it's painful because I can't use it with my switcher sometimes. Like I pop it up and it just doesn't work. And I'm like, why?
We will find out on Tuesday. Of course, Apple will celebrate it. Will it be, you said something interesting. Will it be Thunderbolt, you think? How high speed will it
be? Could be.
They might as well,
Could
right?
Be. There's why not
on the
put
Pro.
Your Thunderbolt's your thing.
Pro.
Exactly. On the really expensive Ultra.
It costs money to do that port, right?
But if you're doing an Ultra, you're buying into the
Ultra.
Creme de la creme.
Ultra's the Ultra.
Probably 4 times the speed. So it would be.
And you're talking about creators who would need to move a lot of data on and off that device who would say, wow, if I can get Thunderbolt speeds off of this thing, as well as unnamed Thunderbolt accessories that are already part of my workflow. Yes, this is why I spend the extra $200-$300 for the top of the line one, not just so I can flex on everybody else at the TGI Fridays.
I do think that the Ultra is going to be Apple. We'll see how much more expensive it is. I think that over time, we're going to find that that's the one that they're kind of unrestrained. Like they can just do whatever they want with that price.
We've always said that they should have one device that the price is not a constraint. That like, if you didn't have to think about how much it was going to cost to make it, what would you do? Vision Pro is that. for sure.
Because some part of their audience does not care what it costs. Some part of their audience,
like the four people at this
especially,
table,
will pay whatever.
Yes.
Well, it's our job, but yeah, I mean, but the Vision Pro is definitely price constrained.
Really? It's a compromise. Huh.
Oh yeah. There's definitely compromises. The next,
I guess the sky's the limit when you're coming to that kind of device.
Well,
you could make a $20,000 headset.
Yeah. If you at 10,000, probably 8 to 10,000, you could probably get out 120 frames per second, 8K per eye. And
then
that
you'd
would
have
make
something.
a huge difference.
So they should make that because there's people like you who would buy that.
I think I'm 100% behind it. I don't know what I'd have to sell to get it. That'd be hard for me to buy. Like I'd be like, I don't even know. Like it's
Carlita.
That would be.
Every September I stop buying everything because I know I'm buying a new phone.
Me too.
So it's like everything. I go into like save mode for a couple.
It's going to be expensive couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah. They could call the Apple Vision Lisa. And then, like 3 years later, the Apple Vision Mac comes on, totally undercuts the price at 4 times the performance.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard right now. I mean, so the physics problems with the VR headsets are insanely hard. But I do think that, I am getting closer to where, especially with the Pro Max that I have now, that I do just use it almost all the time. I mean, I have specialty cameras for what I do, but on a day-to-day basis, I really don't miss taking a camera anywhere. And I would love to see Apple put a larger chip in and be able to, just add more performance.
I've pledged to just bring my Leica Q with me and just have that all the time, because then I have a camera distinct from my phone. I don't know why, but I feel like that's a different experience. That's kind of, anyway, we'll see. According to Digitimes research, senior analyst Luke Lin, the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus will be the same price as the 14 and 14 Plus, but the Pro Max, and I guess there might be an Ultra, will cost more. A major price hike is the phrase he uses, partly because of the switch from stainless steel to titanium, partly because of the new periscope lens system. Maybe we can throw in Thunderbolt as well.
And partly because they're some of the best-selling ones that they're making right now.
Yeah, partly because this is what the market will bear.
Some of the reports suggest that it's possible they won't raise the price in the U.S., but that they will definitely be doing it overseas. I wouldn't be surprised if they raise it in the U.S., but I would also not be surprised. Last year, I thought they would raise the price of the high-end phone, and they held off in the U.S. And they might still do that, especially depending on the marketing. Mark Gurman has said that there are only 2 high-end phones, so there's not a Pro Max and an Ultra. The question is just marketing. Are they going to change the Pro Max and start calling it Ultra and differentiating it further that way, or is that for another year and not this year? And I feel like that we don't know because that's a marketing decision. That's something that they can hold really close to their chest. But that there'll only be those 2 phones up there, and it's so easy to say, yeah, of course it'll be more expensive. That's what Apple does. They make everything you want more expensive, and then you buy it, and they make all the money, and they laugh all the way to the bank, and that's true. But they also have shown some restraint in a cooling, especially U.S. smartphone market,
that's true.
And they might say that it's close enough, it's good enough, especially since they have all these other tricks in terms of onboard storage and stuff to get you to pay more than the base price.
And they can get away with that because they've also done a really good job in making sure that they cover pretty much almost every single price budget along the iPhone line, between making sure that they have a diverse line of new phones every single year and also keeping older phones on the price list but continuing to drop the prices of them. So I think they're very competitive with mid-range and even some low-cost Android phones, and that's saying something.
Chance Miller rating for 9 to 5 Mac reminds us that Tim Cook during Apple's Q1 23 earnings call said, quote, iPhone contains their contacts and their health information and their banking information and their smart home and so many different parts of their lives, their payment vehicle, and for many people. So I think people are willing to really stretch to get the best they can afford in that category. Maybe he was just justifying their existing $1,000 price, but maybe that is some thinking at Apple that, because this becomes more and more your primary computing device, maybe people are willing to expand the amount they're willing to pay.
I don't know if I'm representative, but I spend more time on my iPhone than any other device I have. Like whether it's computers or anything else, it's the and I think that, again, I think the Apple's advantage is that I actually really think that Apple users are just less geeky. Like they just want it to work. They want it to be in the background and there when they need it. They just don't want to fiddle with it. They just want it to work. Like I found that someone wanted to send me money over Venmo, and I opened it up and I was like, okay, this is super weird that I'm seeing everybody else's transactions. Totally just shut it off and took it off my phone. I was like, I don't want to use that. And that was just last night. And so I was like, I just want it to work. I just want to send my Apple Pay to what you're doing. So. Period.
I also think that the lengthening of the cycle, while it hurts Apple in some ways because they're not selling people a new phone every 2 years anymore, it might be 3 or 4 years, it does for a certain portion of the user base mean if you're only buying it every third year or every fourth year, you want to spend a lot of money on the best one because then you're going to use it for a long time. And if that's the case, that also makes it easier. It's your number one device. It's your most important thing in your life. You're only going to buy it every 3 years. So shelling out $1,200 or $1,300 for a high-end spiffed up iPhone Pro is not as hard a question for a certain portion of Apple's base. And that's part of the game Apple's playing. Apple is using old models and the SE and stuff to push down into lower price points for people who are more price sensitive in the US and around the world. But they also want to take as much money as they can from people who literally will pay anything for the new iPhone.
And also, even if you're updating every year, like my wife and kids have older ones, but they're not going to need another one this year. And this one I put into a case the moment it showed up. I put a screen protector on it, and I will take it out, and there's a high probability I'm going to sell it. Just like sell it off. I'll get a big chunk of that back of what I put into it because it's in mint condition. And so I think that there's other people thinking about it that way as well.
Yeah, my iPhone is mintier than it's ever been. I haven't dropped it or anything. That's a good point. What percentage of it? What's the depreciation? It's pretty low for after a year, I would bet.
I don't know what it. I don't.
And I'm going to include.
The thing that I'm starting to get into. I've been starting to do is like keep the boxes. Like keep the boxes.
Yes, I keep the boxes. Because then
I now carefully. This is the first one. I carefully took it out of the box.
Yeah,
and just left everything else in the box.
Yeah,
like I don't need
including the cables that you don't need.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it all there.
Almost pristine.
And then I put it all back.
Yeah, and I don't take the sticker even. I leave that in too.
I take the sticker.
What am I going to do with 800 Apple stickers?
Ask for that. Gazelle doesn't, or they don't ask for those. I take the sticker. I have a big pile of stickers. I never put them anywhere. But
I only save the silver and black ones. The oddball ones. The white stickers. Those are a dime a dozen. I got 1 million of them. Great conversation. More to come in just a bit. But first, a word from our sponsor, Melissa, the contact data quality experts. The holiday season, of course, is probably the number one mailing season for your business. It is for ours. And that means it's more crucial for contact data quality than any other. 74% of retail purchases are going to be made through mobile platforms this year. So be prepared for any unforeseen changes with Melissa's 5-step holiday preparedness plan. Number 1. Check your house lists twice. Up to 40% of all address changes are never reported to the U.S. Postal Service. Meet USPS Move Update standards and get postal discounts with Melissa's global address verification. And because Melissa is a NCOA Link full service provider licensee of the USPS, you can rest assured your data is automatically updated. Okay? So make sure you do that. Step 2, enrich your marketing list. Start with address data you've already got. Verify that. And then let Melissa's premium data enrich your lists by adding addresses, phones, emails, social media, and more. Step 3, this is really important. And I have to say, I'm impressed. More and more merchants are using Melissa to do this. Add address auto-completion at checkout. I just bought some nano lights on Alex's recommendation. It knew my address, because I just started entering it and said, oh, you mean this? Improve your customer's experience. You've seen this by expediting the checkout process with, here's the term of art, auto-population. Reduce address correction fees, which is important, and overall cart abandonment. Make it easy for customers to buy. Make sure you have the correct address information. Step 4, distinguish between residential and business addresses. This is much more important than you might think because of residential surcharges. FedEx, for instance, charges roughly 65% more for residential delivery. There's a big bump with UPS, too. And if you know which is residential, which is business, you will not be caught with your fees down. With more people working from home, it's really important to identify if a shipment's going to a residence or a business. Step 5, digital identity verification. Make sure your customer is who they say they are, and this is key for eliminating fraud. Melissa, identity verification increases compliance, reduces fraud, improves onboarding, and Melissa Enrich gives insight into who and where your customers are. Do you get the sense Melissa does a lot? It does. Since 1985, Melissa has specialized in global intelligence solutions and contact data quality. And don't worry, your data is safe with Melissa. They undergo independent security audits continually to make sure they are SOC 2, HIPAA, and GDPR compliant. They always are. They are. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. Great way to test it out. Melissa, and you'll be amazed. You'll be impressed. You may be amazed by how much wrong data you have in your databases. Melissa.com/twit is the address. Please use that so they know you saw it here. Melissa, MELISSA.com/twit, one of our longtime sponsors, and we really love them. Melissa.com/twit. Thanks so much, Melissa, for supporting MacBreak Weekly. As long as we're talking Digitimes, I'll throw in one more rumor. This one, I almost didn't even want to. I don't think I bookmarked it because it was so dopey. Apple will, maybe it's not dopey. Apple will launch low-cost MacBooks next year to rival Chromebooks. Apple, they're not making them yet. Quanta Computer and Foxconn, which makes those laptops, seem not to be doing anything particular right now except making phones. But Apple apparently, like every other PC manufacturer, wants to get some of that lucrative Chromebook market. It's growing all the time. And I don't know where Digitimes gets this, but they say they're going to do a low. What does low cost mean to Apple, though?
Yeah, exactly. They're going to, I mean, the only reason why this is even marginally interesting is that it does come from Digitimes and it's not, Joe Blow on Twitter. However, to compete with Chromebooks, they're going to have to sell for less than $300.
No, that's not going to happen. And that's just
exactly. And
because you've got an iPad at that price point, so you don't want to undercut that.
Well, yeah, but the problem that Apple's facing is that there are restrictions on what kind of hardware school systems can buy for their kids, and they include, well, you're going to have a trackpad, you're going to have a keyboard, and so even the $329 or $300 educational iPad doesn't meet those goals. I just don't think that it's something that Apple is even capable of doing. If they were to do it, they would want to do it in a way that's better than Chromebooks are, which is a very, very big margin to do. They're not great laptops. They weren't designed to be. They were designed to be affordable so that instead of a school being able to fill like a 20-seat classroom with 8 really, really good notebooks that are going to have to double up between students, they want to be able to buy 20 workable meets the prescription laptops that everybody can have. And I don't think Apple would be interested in doing that. I don't think they have any special elfin magic that they could create something like that would be competitive.
The one thing that maybe would spur them to do that is if they had a bunch of, let's say, M1s unsold. Remember, they bought all of TSMC's capacity, and they were able to make maybe a plastic M1 for a lot less, and they had some parts.
The hard part is that
remember, that's why they made the studio display, because they had extra iPhone parts lying around.
I think that the thing is the iPad is so much more than the Chromebook when it comes to actual being able to create things. Not just be a little machine that is typing little things. And my kids have 2 Chromebooks and 2 iPads. They use Chromebooks for school because they have to, and then they never look at them again.
But notice,
they're just
notice,
trash,
Alex. You and I know that, but the school buys Chromebooks. That's the point.
Some schools do.
Yeah,
a lot of schools are buying iPads as well.
30 million last year.
The schools run by administrators who don't have any vision.
That's right. I understand. That's still the market.
They are damaging their future by using Chromebooks. It is the inability to create on the Chromebooks just destroys the only thing that matters. That the problem is that most of what kids are learning at school, they're never going to use again. Like, being able to create, being able to, generate content is super important. Being able to generate ideas, is super important. And it just gets so watered down and dumbed down by Chromebooks, and I get what Google did really effectively is they got the receiver to stop and they just threw right where the receiver is, right where the teachers asked for. Like, this is what we need. We just need it to be easy to do this thing. But there was no forward motion of what that is actually going to need later. And, and so, it's really painful as a parent to watch. Like, and so I keep them with their iPads so they can actually do something useful with it. But I feel like kids who don't have parents or that can afford to buy them real computers are really at a huge disadvantage by administrators thinking that this is going to be enough, because it's just not in the future. Well,
I agree with the principles that you're saying. However, I don't think that the slot that is being filled by Chromebooks and that those same purchase agreements would be hypothetically filled with an iPad, they're not there to help kids learn how to create and explore and create new experiences and whatever. Sometimes some computers are just basic fundamental equipment that this is the table stakes that you absolutely need to start from. Just like a school needs a heating system, it needs air conditioning, it needs electricity, it needs a lunch program, that kind of stuff. They're not exciting, but I'm just saying that if you want to make sure that kids can do online research, that they can use whatever software suite is being used to have a unified curriculum, so they can submit reports, they can submit homework. Teachers can also oversee and lead classes from the front of the room.
So it feeds the machine. It feeds the machine. Like it's just that, but and it's fine. It's fine, because I mean the schools that we have today are not going to be the schools we have in 10 years. I mean, they're going to be gone. Like so we can, so it's not that big of a deal today, because that the ones that can't figure out how to be innovative aren't going to last. We're past the whole, like, people are just going to send their kids to public school. That's not going to happen much longer.
I have to point out at this point a little disclaimer that Alex Lindsay is an educational iconoclast and always has been. Okay.
Yeah. Iconoclast? I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, if you had a better education, you might.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
I rest my case.
All I want to say is that the teachers in the classrooms and even the administrators, they have incredible problems that they're dealing with that go far beyond. Are we giving kids the technology they can use to create and be part of the classroom of the future in 2033? They're fighting wars on fronts where there is a book we've been using for 30 or 40 years, and now because of two activist parents and somewhere inside the school system, we have to fight to say that this education is important. We have to fight to say that this part of our science curriculum is important. That no, we don't have to tell you that it's possible that God created the universe, because science doesn't say that. On that basis, they got a really full plate. And sometimes, again, a good part of their job has to be spent on simply saying the lights are on, the rooms are heated, everybody has a seat and a desk that's not going to dump them on their butts, and they have a computer for which they can learn the basic skills of computing and the basic skills of document creation and expressing your ideas through words and pictures. I think it's great if the school system can also have in that same classroom 1 or 2 Macs and a few iPads, so that when it's time to create the multimedia part of the presentation, they can now take all the work they've done collaboratively in Google Docs for education and then say, well, great, now we're going to put this into Keynote, or we're going to create this animation with Keynote or with Motion, and then add that to our presentation. But at some point, I'm not going to, I'm really have a problem with faulting educators for not having the vision to buy iPads that are not suitable for the task for which they are being approved funds to buy computers.
In England, they're still having to worry about the ceilings falling in. So there's that, too. Well, Jason Snell has a theory.
I have a theory.
I want to hear your theory, my friend.
It has nothing to do with the education market, because my theory is going to start with the fact that we're talking about a story from Digitimes, which is reporting from the industry sources that are probably in the supply chain, which means they don't know what this computer is for. They don't know who it's going to be marketed for. They're assuming that if Apple is making a low-cost laptop, that it's for schools. But that feels to me a little bit like a veneer of angle to the story
Good
that
point.
Digitimes is putting on it.
Good point.
I look at this and I think if this is true, and we don't know, this is a kind of a shifty rumor, but if Apple is looking at this, I think it's far more likely that Apple is looking at the fact that they've got the M1 MacBook Air, the M2 MacBook Air, and the forthcoming M3 MacBook Air. And they're like, what are we doing? Because the M2 is coming down, but they really have a lot of customers, including in education, who want that low for Apple, a sub $1,000 laptop price point.
But very
and I
performant
wonder,
still, which is kind of impressive.
the M1 is still amazing, right?
Yeah.
So what if Apple is investigating here is how do we use the work we did on the M1 Air and build something that's, I mean, for lack of a better word, a MacBook SE, a older tech designed to be cheaper laptop that is not going to appeal to the people who are going to buy a MacBook Air M2 or M3, but using possibly just to start the M1 and some cheaper materials. The Digitimes report says it's still metal, but not like the same. And I just keep coming back to cut costs, cut corners. The Air is a little too nice. So we're going to make a cheaper version of it it's cheaper to make, but it's still got the profile of an M1 Mac. That's potentially still a pretty good product, especially if you could get it to $699 or something like that, $599, and still have the MacBook Air up at $1,000. I think that is a more reasonable scenario in my mind for what this might be.
Yeah, I think there's room for creating a competition, not with Chromebooks, but with this really great $500, $600, $700 Windows notebooks that are out there, where their biggest faults are all not due to the hardware, but just due to the fact that they're running Windows. So if they could if they could try to get back the people who need a new laptop because they're entering high school,
have to run Windows.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that being as snide as possible. I'm talking about like if you could.
Right.
There are a whole bunch of like really cheap Windows notebooks where if I could run Windows on if I could run Mac OS on this, it would be a good competition for like a MacBook for me, because I love the design of it. I love the choices they've made of it. The keyboard might be nicer. It might have extra ports to it. All this other sort of stuff. And again, most of when you're talking about it's time to buy the kid his or her or their own notebook because they're going to high school or they're going to college, we don't have $1,000 or $1,200 to spend on a MacBook, so we're going to get them something that's Windows based. We also are too smart to buy them a $250 Chromebook that's designed pretty much for education. It's like I would love to buy the kid a MacBook, which is one of the best notebooks you can buy, but I'm also not going to buy them with $1,200 or $1,300 or $1,500 Windows machine either. I've got $600 or $700 seems like a reasonable amount of money to spend on
Here's the laptop
price band?
I think Apple's competing against, because they don't have anything at the $850 price point, but Dell does with the XPS 13, which is quite a nice, very MacBooky. It's 12th generation Intel. It's a 16 gigs of RAM, and it's running Windows. That's its only handicap, which, by the way, not everybody in the world sees as a handicap. I think that's a much more sensible place for Apple to aim. And they also, do they have this bumper where at the iPad is going to keep them from going too low? They don't want to cannibalize iPad sales.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you're exactly right, Andy. They need something under $1,000. What is the educational price for the lowest cost MacBook
Is
Air?
it $899 right now? I think $899.
$100 less than whatever it is at retail.
Yeah, so they need a $699 to $799, somewhere in there. I think that makes a lot of sense. And since they probably have surplus parts that they can use for this, I think that makes sense. I think you hit it on a nail on the head,
and
Jason.
The M1 is just not bad, right?
No, it's good.
We are in a weird point right now where the M1, this 4-year-old, 3-year-old right now, but when this comes out, 4 or 5-year-old chip, honestly, it's still going to be able to do almost everything people wanted to do. So
certainly in school.
Maybe, and it's very Tim Cook, right? To take kind of like old stuff and say, let's not discontinue this old stuff. Let's use it to make something cheaper that people will buy who can't buy the expensive stuff.
And you get into the same thing that you saw with Apple has to be preparing for this wave that we've talked about in the past, which is 90% of kids in school are using iPhones. There's a lot of demand as they go to college to probably get something that's more Mac driven, for that. as we talked about earlier, I don't think they have any temptations like they're going to keep on using a Chromebook. So they're going to, transition to that as they go into college. So it does make a lot of sense. I mean, right now, if I was going to get something, unless they really thought they were going to use it all over the place, I'd still look at a Mac Mini because it's really inexpensive and really powerful. And it's got a lot more ports.
For school, I think they want laptops. I really do.
Yeah, they kind of have to.
Yeah,
I'd rather have a Mac Mini. at school, I'd rather have a Mac Mini and an iPad myself. Like I'd take the iPad around to class and do real work at home with it. But I like to leave my technology.
Well, when you start your fine private charter school, you can do that.
I don't need to go anywhere in my school.
And I bet all the kids are on Segways, or you're gonna have one of those moving sidewalks taking them from class to class.
I just have them just get up and turn their computer on. I don't need them to go.
Yeah,
anywhere.
right. They don't have to go anywhere. Let them stay in their jammies. Take a break and come back with an actual news story. Enough Digitimes rumors for the time being, anyway. We're going to be dealing with rumors right up until the Apple event, and then it's all hard news.
Because it's like when you see that when the grocery store has a really good sale on milk, it's because, oh God, all this stuff is going to go. We can't sell this in the next 2 days.
Get these rumors out. We got to move them out.
I don't care how bad these rumors are if we don't use them now.
We got cottage cheese one day before expiration. We got to move it out. I'm not going to do the rumors about the digital crown for the MacBook or the clear laptop that they just patented in the US and the UK. I'm not going to do those. We're just going to skip right over those. You can, if you're into rumors, I'm sorry. We're going to disappoint you. First, though, before we do any more, a word from our sponsor, Delete Me. I can say from personal experience, this is a thing that many of you will want to do, especially in business, especially if you're an executive in business. We've had our executives do this. If you've ever searched for your name online, have you noticed how much, not just, your blog, but personal information is online? It might make you feel a little exposed and unsafe. And if you're in a business, the fact that executives' personal information is available online is really a recipe for disaster with spear phishing and impersonation. Since 2010, Delete Me has been on a mission to empower individuals and organizations by allowing them to reclaim their privacy and help them remove personal data from online sources. This is their passion, a passion for privacy, a commitment to making it simple for customers to use. By doing this, you reduce the risk from identity theft, credit card fraud, robocalls, spam, cybersecurity threats, harassment, just generally unwanted communications. And the thing is, you could do some of this yourself. You can't really do all of it yourself. The average person has more than 2,000 pieces of data about them online, data that Delete Me can find and remove. There are literally now hundreds of data brokers out there collecting that information about you and selling it to the highest bidder. And every day, dozens more emerge. You can't keep up with it. One customer said, I signed up with Delete Me. They took it from there. Awesome service, already seeing results. First, you sign up. You'll give them some basic information. They need to know what it is that they're searching for. They'll remove it from search engines, but then, and this is really what you want, they will find and remove your personal information from all those data brokers, helping reduce your online footprint and keeping you and your family safe. Thanks to GDPR, California's privacy regulations, these data brokers have to offer a way for you to remove the data, but they don't have to make it easy. That's what Delete Me is so good. They know all the ins and outs for each and every one. They know how to get that stuff off. Once the removal process starts, you're going to get a detailed Delete Me report within 7 days, but they don't stop there. They'll continue to, and they have to because there's always new stuff coming online, scan and remove personal information. Every 3 months, with an automated removal opt-out monitoring, they'll ensure records don't get repopulated after being removed. That's a little trick the data brokers use. I know, I've experienced this. They're going to get things like names, addresses, but things like photos, emails, names of your relatives, phone numbers. Just search, you'll find your phone number, I guarantee you, online. Social media, home address, property value, and more. As the data broker industry grows and evolves, basically unregulated, Delete Me continues to add new sites and features to ensure their service is both simple to use and effective in removing personally identifiable information. It's a shame we need this, but we do. I mean, honestly, I wish Congress would do something about this, but they're not. So you got to take your own privacy, your own security in hand and use Delete Me. Now, since privacy exposures and incidents will affect people differently, their privacy advisors at Delete Me ensure that all their customers have the support they need when they need it. They'll help you. They're there. They're almost like counselors. Lisa's been using this for a long time now. It's really, really important. Protect yourself. Reclaim your privacy by I almost don't want to say who here has been using it because I don't want to invade their privacy. Just trust me, a lot of people here use it. JoinDeleteMe.com/twit's the website. JoinDeleteMe.com/twit. The promo code is twit. Lisa said I could say she's one of them. Otherwise, I wouldn't mention it. JoinDeleteMe.com/twit. The promo code TWIT at checkout will get you 20% off. That's too bad we need this, but we do. JoinDeleteMe.com/twit. Offer code twit. Don't forget that. And thank you, Join Delete Me, for your support. From the Financial Times, not a big rumor site as far as I know. Apple and Microsoft fight Brussels over. I'm not talking vegetables here. We're talking about the EU over gatekeeper label for iMessage and Bing. Apple's questionable strategy is, Messages isn't that big. It's not big enough to be regulated under the Digital Markets Act. Bing, I believe Bing's not that big, but so the key is platforms with an annual revenue of more than 7.5 billion euros, a market cap above 75 billion euros, and active EU users of 45 million fall under the rules. Apple, I think you could argue Apple has all of the above, but Apple says iMessage doesn't meet the threshold of user numbers. Not 45 million in the EU.
I will say that I don't know a single person in Europe that uses messages. I literally all use WhatsApp.
So here's the question:
if
they've sold 45 million iPhones in the EU, isn't it the case that every iPhone uses messages, whether you prefer WhatsApp or not?
But are you actively using it?
Well, that's the question, which comes down to what metric is Apple using? Let's play the game. How do we get the numbers to be underneath the total? It's sort of like The Price is Right. You don't want to go over. R.I.P. Bob Barker.
And by the way, they have never revealed how many iPhones they've sold in Europe, so we don't know what that number is, but I think it's probably sufficient.
My guess is what they're going to say is it's about active use of the platform, right? My guess is what they're saying is essentially, Europeans don't send iMessages to each other. They send WhatsApp messages or whatever, and therefore there aren't that many people actively using iMessage. And remember, Messages app is not the same as iMessage, right? The service, and like a text message through your carrier is not an iMessage necessarily.
But it uses the Messages app.
It does use the Messages app, but does it use the iMessage protocol? I think this is the question, though, is that I talk to people I know in Europe who are like, it's irrelevant, right? Like Messages is irrelevant to them because all their group texts, all their text messages are using a third-party app. They're not using Apple's app.
So people in Europe don't text people via their phone number? They don't send a text to a phone number? They just use WhatsApp?
They send it to the phone number that was registered with WhatsApp.
Yeah.
In WhatsApp.
Via WhatsApp. They never open Apple's messages.
And so this is Apple saying, please don't regulate us. We're unsuccessful.
By the way, what's the upshot of them being regulated? Well, one thing, they'd have to open it up. And for instance, which I think a lot of EU customers would let them use WhatsApp as their SMS messaging default.
Yeah. Also, this is weird because there's no way that Apple can win because the EU is not going to say,
You're right.
Sorry to bar. They're gonna say, "Wow, great! I bet you'll be able to provide us with hard numbers on all of the usage of these devices of this app, the service on your phone." And Apple has never, ever, 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 ever wanted to do that. So it's like, congratulations, we're gonna find out exactly how many people use it. And it's like Jason says, it's like, how are they going to count it? They can use Hollywood. They're going to use Hollywood bookkeeping. Says that our numbers say that it's 92 million a month. And they can say, yeah, no, send this back to accounting. Make sure you get this down to 44.7.
To be honest, I mean, only from my experience, I'd be surprised if it was more than 45 million were using it regularly in Europe. Very surprised. I would be surprised.
Yeah, but it doesn't say
more than 10
But wait a
million.
minute, Alex. There's nothing in the regulation that says regularly.
No, it does.
Yeah, it's
active users. Monthly active users.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look at monthly active users, if it was above 10 million, I'd be a little surprised. Above 20 million, I'd be very surprised. I mean, there is nobody that I deal with pretty much in the rest of the world that uses anything other than WhatsApp. Like, it's just like a WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and then everyone uses Messenger and other things like that because they're in Facebook. But it's just a very, very tiny, outside of the United States. High schools. it's a pretty small number, and so I don't know if it needs to meet all those thresholds. I think they actually. I don't see
monthly active users. He's reaching at least 45 million users in the EU, which is 10% of the population. You don't think 10% of
I read that said.
Well, I'm looking. This is the EU's own description of it. You don't think 10% of the population of Europe uses iPhones and messages?
Well, again, from my experience, none of them do. Like, I can't get a hold of them with messages. Like, they don't even. It's like as if the app doesn't even exist. Like, I don't know anybody.
Apple's App Store has already been identified as an very large online platform.
Well, because a lot of people are buying apps. A lot of people are buying apps on the App Store because if you have an iPhone, you have that, and that's what you're gonna use. So that makes sense.
But you can't on the iPhone. You can't say I want all my text messages to go to WhatsApp. You can't. That's part of the issue right now.
But then they're all using WhatsApp. I mean, like, th're all in WhatsApp all the time. Like,
right.
That's all they're not. No one's using text.
Yeah, but even so, this is going to be something where, like we've been saying with all these lawsuits, like, Apple's not going to have. We're not just going to take your word for it, Apple. You're going to have to actually prove it and prove it to a very high standard. I mean, if they don't qualify for it, then they should fight this. But again, you're going to have to show enough data about the amount of traffic that you put across in the EU to make sure that you don't actually qualify for this.
I think if Apple disconnected everyone in Europe that have messages, just disconnected them instead,
no one would notice.
Anyone in Europe would notice.
Yeah, and to be honest, that would be like there's so many. The fight to regulate all of these huge companies is turning into a lot of so you're. Canada told Google that, by the way, you're going to have to pay news creators for every link that you send to their sites. They said, okay, I guess we're not going to be providing any news in Canada anymore because that's stupid and we're not going to do that. So, yeah.
Penalties are great, up to 6% of revenue for non-compliance. The thing that, honestly, it would be nice to see Apple support some of these measures. Countermeasures against illegal activities are required, increased scrutiny. You should be able to trace sellers in online marketplaces to combat scammers. Limits on targeted advertising. Maybe Apple didn't like that so much. The biggest thing, though, would be opening the platform. Algorithmic transparency, the ability. For instance, I think they might require Apple to say, you can use WhatsApp for your text messaging. That would be okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I think I've got the actual text of the resolution here. It says provides a core platform service that in the last financial year has at least 45 million monthly active end users established or located in the union, and at least 10,000 yearly active business users.
Monthly
active users
has to be 45 million, 10%.
And I think that 45 million would be really hard pressed, given. I just don't think anybody's using it. They just never. It's all WhatsApp.
Well, does Apple have to prove that, or can they just assert it? I think they'd have to prove it, right? They'd have to. They just have to show us the numbers, right?
Well, if you show somebody the numbers, it doesn't mean that they have to necessarily make them public.
Apple just hasn't disclosed those numbers forever.
Yeah, but that would be a canary though. Like, oh, congratulations! The EU has declared that Apple's iMessage does not fall within the purview, or it does fall within that purview.
Yeah.
So at least we'll get something out of it.
Brussels is, according to the Financial Times, still deliberating, and you know how Brussels can be, over the inclusion of iMessage and Bing in the final list. So that's why this is still open. The Commission may open a probe to determine if these services should face the new obligations set out in the DMA. This is relevant because I think is it now active? I think it was September 1st, the deadline. Or that was the DSA.
2024, I think.
Yeah, that was the DSA. So it's January of next year. All right, well, we'll see. Legal fights between tech giants and EU regulators come at a time of heightened scrutiny over their alleged anti-competitive behavior. This year, Brussels threatened to break up Google, says the Financial Times, over its alleged illegal practices in the ad tech space. They certainly are saber-rattling more than even here in the U.S.
Yeah, we've been talking about Apple getting out of this one thing, but they're in all the other things, right? They're a gatekeeper in all these other ways. It's just this one portion of their business where they're trying to. I mean, it literally is. Look, guys, we're not that successful in Europe with iMessage. Leave it out. And I think that they've got a good chance of proving that because they're bad at that in Europe. They just are. So there are also those reports we talked about a while ago, like where it's going to hit them is things like App Store policy, where they may have to make enormous changes, at least in the EU, to the App Store. But iMessage, it feels like just small fry. Like it's going to not be particularly important. And I would also say, if in the end they have to make different default apps for messaging available, like. They've already done that with so many different apps that I don't think it would be a big deal.
Yeah. We've already heard really good information about how, like, if and when Apple does have to open up the App Store in the EU, congratulations, they will open up the App Store in the EU. It's not they're going to have a special version of the OS that only works that's geo-locked to EU phone numbers, and it's not as though that's going to be something that's going to be available to us in the US. And it's also remains to be seen how they're gonna actually comply with this. If they're gonna say, oh, well, congratulations, you can just simply download this from anywhere, an external app store. We're perfectly happy with it. We're not gonna do anything to make that more difficult to install or use or trust. And we're certainly not gonna treat the apps that you install with those apps as second-class citizens on this ecosystem. No, they're gonna basically say, if you have fallen on glass and you've severed an artery, and the only way to stop the bleeding and save your life is to install an external app outside the App Store, then you will probably make the decision that what we put you through is going to be worth installing this external app. However, if you're simply bleeding a lot and you can make it to the emergency room, you'll say, you know what? This is way too much trouble. I'll just be lightheaded until the ambulance comes.
And the reality is just forking it for the EU is probably enough to kill it, because it just means that you have you've subdivided the market. So as a developer, you really have to make a good reason to build something that's outside of the App Store, because you're now only targeting one part of the world, and which is a much smaller minority. I don't know if it would be. I just don't think if they actually fork it, I don't think that most developers would want to go down that path, because it would fragment their market.
Except what it will do is show that Apple has done the engineering work to enable this feature, which makes it a lot easier for other countries to then pass laws and regulations that require Apple to put it in their territory. And I think that's the thing Apple's the most concerned about, is not
the real threat.
Just Europe, but it's that once it's like what we were talking about encryption in the UK thing. Right. It's like if they say yes and break encryption just for the UK, everyone else will just pass their own laws to do the same thing.
Every time,
same is true of the App Store.
Every time there's a breach in that other app store or anything wrong, you can guarantee that Apple will talk to the press.
I think this is the most important part about the EU thing is Apple has said it's a Pandora's box, right? Apple has said if you let side loading happen on the iOS instead of the App Store on iOS, bad actors, bad things are going to happen. And the EU, it's really going to be like, well, let's see. right? Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And it could be that they are able to say, see, I told you so, this is very bad. It could also be that their argument is exposed as being toothless because it's really not a big deal, because they have all of the other security in place because they want their users in the EU to not be hacked, right? We'll see.
Yeah.
Pressure at home on Apple to do something about child sexual abuse material. There's a new group called the HEAT Initiative, which is led by the former vice president for the nonprofit Thorn. Thorn develops new technologies to combat child exploitation online and sex trafficking. Thorn loved the 2021 CSAM initiative that Apple decided not to proceed with. They called Apple's decision to kill the feature disappointing. Now the HEAT initiative has emerged to push Apple to bring back,
I think,
CSAM scanning.
I think that Apple was trying to head this off. This is what they were doing before was, hey, there's a bunch of pressure being built. A lot of these kind of campaigns happen over very many years of them pushing down on it before they become public. And I think Apple was trying to head it off, and then they ran into a wall of, hey, a bunch of us think that's a really, like you're opening up a Pandora's box of, we're going to dig into your private information on your phone. And while the vast majority are not going to be moving pornography or child pornography around, it's still like once you open that door, it's hard to close it again. And I think that, so I think everyone got upset. I don't think Apple expected it to be such a hot topic for them, and they dropped out of it. And now I don't think they want to go back.
Yeah. It's interesting. So they got, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say, this is not necessarily a grassroots group. This is a group that doesn't seem to exist for anything except to actually shame Apple about this one issue. It seems to have been
Apple under the heat.
Yeah, it seems to have been set up for this press release, essentially. And the one person who was involved is somebody who's basically has on their resume this one other thing, which was for the nonprofit that Ashton and Demi set up, I guess, about child pornography.
Oh, really?
So it's
is it Ashton and Demi's
I think that's what Thorn is.
Oh, interesting.
And so this is a pressure group, and that's fair. That's how the game is played, and they're going to argue, no. You make your slippery slope arguments. We're going to make our other argument, which is, why are you not protecting the children?
Here's some of the images that you'll see. At protectchildrennotabuse.com. Apple allows child sexual abuse images to be stored on iCloud, and child sexual abuse is stored on iCloud. Apple allows it. I don't think Apple allows it is really the language I would use. They have their own website now. And so Apple, obviously attempting to quell this before it becomes yet another drumbeat. But this is a tough one because nobody wants to be the one that says, oh, yeah, they don't want to be seen as somebody who encourages child abuse, which is why this campaign is acting as if Apple is somehow encouraging it.
This is it's interesting because the group reached out to Apple and said, oh, by the way, we're going to be launching this campaign in about a week. We think it was fair to reach out to you and let you know that we're doing this. Apple's VP of that department basically sent a very, very long, 7-paragraph long substantive email response to them, which they also shared with Wired, which is why we're talking about it now. That basically outlined that, we thought that was a good idea. We talked to a whole bunch of groups who convinced us it was actually not a good idea, that we thought that we would be able to implement this in a way that would protect the safety and security of the privacy of people's data. We became convinced that we were optimistic about that. And so that's why we pulled back about it. But nonetheless, here are a whole bunch of technologies that we did bake into the phone so that make it more difficult and more challenging for kids to be exposed to content that their parents don't want them to be exposed to.
Apple's director of user privacy and child safety said in that response, Eric Neuenschwander. Child sexual abuse material is abhorrent, and we are committed to breaking the chain of coercion and influence that makes children susceptible to it. However, scanning every user's privately stored iCloud data would create new threat vectors for data thieves to find and exploit. It would also inject the potential for, and I think this is really the bigger one, a slippery slope of unintended consequences. Scanning for one type of content, for instance, opens the door for bulk surveillance and could create a desire to search other encrypted messaging systems across content types. For instance, People brought this up. Homosexuality is illegal in some countries. In some countries, considered child abuse. In those countries, they could say to Apple, "Well, we'd also like you to scan for gay content on your iCloud." And so I understand Apple's nervousness about this.
I mean, we're talking about the Kids on Social Media Act that's making its way through Congress right now. COSA, and that's already being used as, okay, the principles of this are very, very sound, but already we're having lawmakers who are supporting it, saying, and we're absolutely definitely going to use this to make sure that we find out if kids are accessing information about transgender resources, because they need to be protected from that awful abusive stuff. And so this was absolutely the right call. And as we've said time and time before, and we just said about half hour ago when talking about opening up the App Store and opening up messages, like, if Apple has demonstrated that, okay, we have the infrastructure now to scan all content on somebody's device for X thing that we'd find objectionable or illegal, now every single government will take a shot saying, well, look, why are you denying us the ability to enforce the laws that exist inside our really, really horrible totalitarian regime? Just flip that switch and give us a version of the iPhone OS that allows us to find out which people are posting really negative things about our regime using their devices. And Apple's going to have a whole new problem in their hands. If they just simply say, we don't have that, we can't do that, they have a no.
Joe, well, that's the problem. Joe in our Discord points out that Apple has in effect telegraphed that they have the ability to do this, even though they say, well, it'd be a bad idea. They've admitted that they technologically can do it, and at that point, they've already opened that Pandora's box. It's a little late to say now.
It's a very limited crack in the box, though, because what they announced was scanning the data on your device before it is uploaded to the cloud, because in the cloud you're talking about encrypted data to a certain, depending on what the encryption levels are on the cloud service that you're using. And so what they were doing is on device doing fingerprinting for known CSAM, right, which is not necessarily going to catch anything other than the known corpus of data. And so that's a really limited thing. And what there was a lot of pushback about that from a lot of areas, as we've detailed. And so they've backed away from that. So that's they've proven that they could probably do that one thing, but I'm not sure that's going to satisfy anybody who's asking for this stuff.
I think China might say reasonably, we want to make sure that before any images of Winnie the Pooh are uploaded to your iCloud that we stop them. And Apple would have to respond to that, right?
And we have countries in which people are being put into jail and given the death penalty for simply expressing. This is not generic. There are cases.
No, Saudi Arabia is declared they're going to kill a dissident who tweeted negative things about MBS. That's appalling. So imagine someone being savvy enough to say, okay, well, that could get me killed, so I'm going to make sure that I use completely secure communications from end to end to make this information get out. Now imagine that the phone has ability to examine the data before it enters that pipeline to begin with. That is a nuclear weapon in the hands of so many really bad people that we just don't want any part of it. Apple's very, very smart to wash their hands of it. Can they? I mean, this is going to be this campaign. I don't know how much money Heat Initiative has to spend, but this campaign. I mean, look, if you just ask people, should Apple be making sure there's no child sexual abuse material on iCloud? 99% of respondents are going to say, well, of course.
But the problem becomes, like, this is another thing we've been.
Yeah, we know this. No, I understand. We know this. No. But how does Apple respond to that?
That's not what I'm talking about. Their out has always been we always obey we were forced to obey the local laws and regulations in which we operate. At some point, they're going to have to draw a line and saying that you're asking us to do something that we find morally abhorrent and we're not going to do it. And Apple has been. I think Apple's doing an okay job so far. Again, their response to this PR campaign is on spot. It was substantive. It was detailed. They knew how to play the media game, saying, well, we're going to be very, very open with this one outlet that we respect and trust and aren't run by bozos, and we're actually going to give them our response, and they're going to be happy enough to spread that response for us. They're not concerned about this one group. They're concerned when a groundswell of people inside Congress start to clamor for this stuff. And unfortunately, the people who are going to be empowering that stuff isn't necessarily a political party, but it's going to be like the FBI. It's going to be like interior intelligence agencies. It's going to be law enforcement that continue to put pressure in every single country, saying that if the people have the ability to keep a secret from the government, then we don't have the ability to track down important crimes, and therefore people should not have the ability to keep secrets from the government. Well,
and when you see odd laws getting created in Australia and New Zealand, you just want to remember that's coming from the NSA. That's the Five Eyes. Like that's the NSA, extending it. And when you see a lot of those, you always want to look at what they're doing there, because they're really small country, like not small, but small in population. You're like, why would they care about that? They're not in that much danger. They're not doing this stuff. And that's not coming from them.
Sometimes it's coming from Rupert Murdoch, but sometimes it's the NSA.
That too.
Well, I'm
not sure who has more baleful influence in Australia.
NSA and MI6 is pretty intense about wanting what they want, So
yeah.
So anyway, but I think it's.
Go ahead.
Anyway, all I was going to say is that it is, as I said, it's energized. All of this stuff is being energized by the intelligence agencies. We should understand they desperately want to keep the phone from getting closed off. Like it's and there's not really any good. I mean, they'll say that there's good reasons, but they have more data than they've ever had in the history of the world about everybody around us.
Again, though, my question is, can Apple resist this pressure?
If people understand where it's coming from, possibly. If they take it, that's why it's important for us to bring up the fact that this is not coming out of a vacuum. Like this is not just about this issue. This is about, you got to be people have to understand what their threat vector is. It's not like they'll go, well, I'm never going to use child pornography, so it doesn't bother me. But opening up that hole is something they just need to pay attention to.
I would say that they're probably going to lose this battle, but I don't know how it's going to end up. And maybe this is the time for people to ensure they have their own encryption solutions ready and downloaded and deployed.
Well, that's the entire issue. If Apple does lose this battle, then it won't matter what kind of encryption solutions, because before it's encrypted, it'll be examined. So,
yeah, that's a good point. If you put it on the phone, it's in the clear on the phone. Maybe that's the time to stop using phones for this kind of stuff. Use your own Linux-based personal computer.
Paper.
Or paper. Apple, I think we talked about this last week, was quick to tell one government regulator, nobody uses our apps. They're never the number one apps. But at the same time, they've just put up a website, apple.com/apps, all about how great apps by Apple are. I think maybe this was different divisions. Kind of, the one division said, "What did you just say about our apps?" Wait a minute, hold on there. They're pretty damn good.
This is why they have to work on it. They have to. Their apps are doing so badly that they have to promote it.
Are they really? It's kind of like Donald Trump saying, "I'm worth $2.2 billion," and then I'm not worth anything, depending on the audience. Depending on the audience, people hate Apple's apps. People love Apple's apps. You be the judge. I would bet because of the tyranny of default that almost everybody's using, except apparently in Europe, Apple's default apps.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting when you see all these things like collected together, and it is actually a very, very impressive like suite of apps. It's part of the story about
they're
how
great.
They're
the best in class usually, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The Mac, when you spend quote extra unquote for a Mac or for an iPhone, it's not necessarily spending extra just for that perfectly chamfered edge. Sometimes it really is because, hey, look at all this is not just something that we introduced this year. We have just been consistently making sure that every single app that comes with these devices are important, relevant, useful, and competitive with whatever else goes out there. Unless you're a regulator, in which we say that no, they're not competitive at all. Actually, it's also fun because if you scroll down to the very, very bottom, it says it's like the end of the introductions on Gilligan's Island. It's like, and the rest. It's like, oh, poor Chess.
So, all right. So at the top, you got the big four, Final Cut, Safari, Messages, and then, oh, look, the phone app. Does anybody not use the phone app on an iPhone? I think you have to. FaceTime, Mail, Creativity, Photos, Camera, GarageBand, Productivity, Notes, Reminders, Calendar, and the rest here on Gilligan's Isle. Apple
DVD player is even down there. Oh my God.
Look at this. This is and the rest. This is it. I love it, Andy.
That's actually still
good catch. There. Good catch. These are all the they're only worth really an icon like chess. Chess is still there. It still comes with your
getting
Mac.
it done.
Still getting it done. What was it? DVD player. Oh yeah, that's good.
DVD player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Didn't Tim Cook say that like someone tweeted him a question some time ago about, gee, why do these things even exist? Or somebody at Apple responded saying that I don't know what the quote is, but the indication was that if we the fact that these apps exist are part of the security signature of the package as a whole, and if we were to remove some of these, we'd have to redo the security package of the signing of the entire package, and that might be one of the reasons why. There's still all of these apps you have to still remember, like actually do something. Although, DVD player, like they can keep that in for free. There's a reason why they don't have like a Blu-ray player. Like even when Blu-rays were still like an actual popular thing, they would have to pay for that to actually use it.
Well, I'm just glad I could still get Texas Hold'em. And with Microsoft removing WordPad, the only word processor on Microsoft Windows from future versions of Windows, the fact that we've got text edit is something to really be proud of. Actually, it comes with Pages, doesn't it? Really? You've got a full word processor for free with Apple devices.
It actually is easier, though. I use text edit a lot more than I use Pages.
Do you?
If I want to build something that looks nice, I use Pages. But if you just want to manage text
type in something.
with something that's built into the computer, obviously BB Edit, and there's lots of other things that are Scrivener and all these other things that are better. But text edit, being able to go Command, I think it's my hand knows what it is, Command Shift T, like just throw something in there.
Yep.
Turn it into plain text, do what you're going to do with it, and send it out again. And I don't want to keep it. I don't want to do anything. I just need to process it really quickly. Text edit's a great tool. Yeah.
I use stickies all the time. I can see at least 8 stickies on my screen right now.
Oh,
it's
really?
It's like your basic. It's like everything from like, oh wait, you're giving information over the phone, and or like. I was doing an interview like on Friday, and as usual, like, here is the name of the person you're talking to.
That's true.
Don't call him. Don't call him Michael when his name is Steven. See, we put up a sticky that says his name is
right
Steven.
there between siren and stopwatch. There's stickies right there on the screen.
I have to admit that I didn't even know stickies was still a thing. Like it was like I didn't even know it still existed. Like there it is. I just typed in stickies and
just type in stickies. Yep.
Oh,
it's in the Spotlight search. Yep.
I use Notes for so many. Like Notes is like my core.
Notes is really impressive, actually.
I mean, it's
if it were cross-platform, I'd probably use it all the time.
That's all I use because I don't care.
And Apple's point at the very bottom, I think, is important. Unparalleled privacy and access for all. Apple's very good with accessibility. And those are 2 really good reasons to use Apple's apps. Plus, I think they're fairly consistent, aren't they, in the UI? I don't know if Texas Hold'em is, but I think most of them.
I mean, you can get a lot. You can get when you buy a Mac. I think one of the things that are underlined is when you buy a Mac or an iPad or an iPhone, you can do an awful lot without buying anything else. Like it really does have.
Well, especially because it comes with Pages and Keynote
and GarageBand, and I mean, Sheets, I've done like
GarageBand, and iMovie. Yeah,
there's
it's pretty impressive.
You can get done.
You probably don't need any third-party apps for most people, really.
Probably for about. A solid 60-70%. They can probably do most of what they do without buying another thing.
Yeah. Some interesting news coming, and we'll be talking a lot about iOS 17 and Sonoma. Those will come out probably Jason? What is it? So the announcement's on Tuesday. Is it Thursday? You'll be able to order on Friday for delivery the 22nd. Is it the Thursday before? Is like the 21st when the operating systems come out?
Sometime
Typically?
that week, I think, is generally when it is. It could be at the end of next week, but probably
more likely
you may
middle
slide
of
into
the
following week. They
Like the
remember, there's
20th.
that one year where they did it like the next day, and all the developers freaked out because their apps weren't ready,
Right.
And people were updating their phones and their apps were breaking. So they try to give them a little bit of warning. But it happens pretty fast. And then Mac OS this year, iPad OS was delayed last year. This year it sounds like it's going to come out simultaneously, but Mac OS generally doesn't arrive until October, and I haven't heard anything different about that yet.
So iOS 17 will have a new feature that is very interesting. Alex, you've always thought Apple was moving towards becoming a full service. In fact, I've seen articles now saying X wants to be the everything app. Apple's already there. Apple's done. So one of the new features in iOS 17 will be Apple Pay cash payments. Throw out your Venmo, your Cash App. You'll be able to pay directly in Apple Pay.
Needless to say, I'm shocked.
Shocked.
Surprised, shocked.
This is actually great.
Which bothered
This is great. No more Zelle. The problem is, of course, that recipients have to be using iPhones, right? You can't send out.
And be in the U.S.
Pay.
Oh, and it's U.S.
Apple
only.
Pay Cash
Okay.
is only in the U.S. Even now, it's only in the U.S. This is one of those Apple Card, Apple Pay Cash. There are a bunch of these things that Apple, even after years, has not managed to get out of the U.S.
Recurring payments are very useful, though. I mean, for rent, for utilities, allowances. It's great for allowances. Really nice way to do this, and I think this is a smart thing because it's going to move more people, even more people, into the Apple Pay ecosystem. So one of the many things. I'm sure next week we'll have lots more to say. Jason will not be here next Tuesday.
I will be down in Cupertino, basically, yeah.
How fun. Enjoy yourself. We will be covering Apple's event on Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. We will watch the live stream together with you. Micah Sargent will be here in the big chair. I'll be back east, but I will join in now that I have my nanotubes and my OBSBot and my green screen. I'll be joining in from Mom. Mom has faster internet than I do. She's got a very nice fiber connection from Cox, so I should be able to do this pretty well.
You're going to be downloading a lot of stuff while you're.
I am. I can't wait. Yeah. Here's the time to get my whole music library back in shape.
Finally time to download Xcode.
And, as a podcaster, working from my mother's basement has always been my dream. So let us
wound up exactly where everyone said I would 20 years ago.
Yeah, you thought it was my
okay,
mom's basement all along, and now it really is.
Shut up, Ma! Doing my show.
Oh, she's already said she's coming in while I'm doing it. She's already said, "Don't pick up the phone, Mom. I'm online." She's already told me she's going to be coming right in there. It's going to be fun.
Suddenly you hear this series of touch tones like on your audio. Hello?
I am old enough to actually remember those days where you had the modem plugged in on your single phone line, but it wasn't my mom at the time. Yeah. But I'm not that old.
Actually, I still have problems like getting to sleep before like 3 or 4 in the morning. I think it's because like as a kid having my first modem and knowing that after 11 is the only time like I can be online.
Right. Exactly. Let's take a little break. Your picks of the week coming up next. You're watching MacBreak Weekly, and of course next week it all begins. Excitement begins. If you are not a member of Club Twit yet, I want to encourage you to join the club because we do have additional features in Club Twit, including Micah Sargent's incredible hands-on Mac. You get ad-free and tracker-free versions of all the shows. You also get a lot of special shows. Thursday, it's a sci-fi lover's delight when we are joined in a fireside chat with Daniel Suarez, author of so many great books, Freedom and Demon, and we've talked about a lot of his books. We've interviewed him, I think, for every single book he's done. And Hugh Howey, the author of the Wool series, which Silo is based on. And Hugh, by the way, got married at Burning Man. He had a kind of a muddy wedding at Burning Man. I think he'll be back. And so that'll be interesting. That's this Thursday. If you are a sci-fi fan, good job scoring a interview with John Scalzi. That will be amazing. That's October 5th. Lots of great stuff. These are events exclusive. Renee Ritchie's coming back in November, exclusive to our club. We also have the Club Twit feed with conversations before and after the show that don't make it into the podcast and other things. And really the best part is your access to the Discord, which is a wonderful community. And because it's a gated community, you don't have to worry about vandals, people, driving, doing car sideshows, doing loop-de-loops in your backyard. No, it's private. It's exclusive. It's a great place. It's a great place to be, and we would love to have you. Plus, it really helps us keep the lights on here. I don't know if you've noticed, but advertising sales have really dropped off. I'm looking at Q4, and our best show, I think is this one, is 65% sold out. But many shows are under 50% sold out. And usually by this time, we've sold them out. And that's a little concerning. It hits the bottom line. That's why the club is so important to us. If you're not yet a member, please consider joining. If you've got the $7 a month, twit.tv/clubtwit. We do have a wonderful sponsor for this segment of MacBreak Weekly, one I've used myself, ZocDoc. Oh, I love ZocDoc. It's funny because, when you go on Amazon, you're going to buy something. I'm going to buy the nanotubes. I will look at the reviews. I will read the reviews. I will really make sure I understand the product before I buy it. And that's just a silly little thing, a light. Why can't you do that for your physician, for your dentist, for your chiropractor? You should be able to see verified reviews of them. Well, that's what you've got with ZocDoc. You could finally do the research you do for even the silliest disco pants or dog hoodies or whatever for your much more important physicians, your dermatologists, your doctors, your dentists. ZocDoc is a place to find and book great doctors. You can narrow them down to ones that take your insurance, that have appointments available, many of them within 24 hours. And you can read verified reviews, and they're very careful to make sure that those reviews are actual patients. So you can see, it's not just, is a doctor good or bad? It's much more than that. What's the style? How do they treat you? How do they act? Some people want a great bedside manner. Some people just say, give me the facts, Jack. ZocDoc is a free app where you can find amazing doctors and book appointments online. Yeah, in the app. Booking appointments with thousands of top-rated, patient-reviewed doctors and specialists. You can filter specifically for the ones that take your insurance, who are located near you, who treat almost any condition you're searching for. They all have verified reviews from real patients. No bots allowed. Now, the average wait time to see a doctor booked on ZocDoc, it's fast, 24 to 48 hours. Wow. You can even score same-day appointments with many of these doctors. Once you find the doc you want, book them immediately with just a few app taps. No more waiting awkwardly on hold with the receptionist to explain your bunion problem. You could get it done online. I love it. And it's a great app for iOS or Android. In fact, you could go to the website ZocDoc.com/MacBreak and download the app for free right now. I know you could also go to the App Store and do it, but please go to the website so they know you saw it here. Find and book a top-rated doctor today. It is the way doctors now use to reach new patients, and you are a new patient. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. It's about time, frankly, that we could get these reviews and really see what we're going to get ahead of time. Why should you be able to do it with, dog baskets and not with your doctor? ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/MacBreak, ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. It's got a great name too. ZocDoc, ZocDoc. Jason Snell, would you kindly honor us with a pick of the week?
I will. I'm going to give you, this is actually, other than the price, I would say quintessential Alex Lindsay pick. Sorry, Alex, it's not, it's a 2-digit price. But it is a utility that if you need, I guess, to use your iPhone anyway, I use it as a camera holder. Using my iPhone as a camera.
I'm going to need this for moms.
I know. So this This is from a company called Shawway. That's probably just a randomly generated number of letters
What's
from
that?
Amazon. But
What's that? Oh, there it is.
Holder.
I thought
So it's got a clamp on
Look at
one
that.
end. You screw it to a table.
Yes.
And then it's got a very long, bendy arm.
Gooseneck,
that you
yes.
very long. It's like a 2
Yes.
foot long, 3 foot long arm that bends in any direction you want, which is very clever. And then at the other end, it's a generic phone holder. So it's just a clamp that you open up and put your phone into. I use this every week because we record video for one of my podcasts, and it's an offset. We don't want it to look like we're looking into a Zoom window like we are for this show. It's sort of like for clips later for like TikTok and stuff like that. And so I set it offset and just let it run during the show. And this is how I do that. And also, it's if you're in a position where you need to put your camera somewhere or your iPhone and use it as continuity camera, you can clamp this to a table or a desk or whatever.
Look at this.
And
clamp it to
works.
the headboard of your bed, and you can
Clamp it. I mean, a clamp. It's a clamp. It doesn't require its compatibility. Is there a thin part that a clamp will fit on? Then this will work there. And then you can bend it into whatever direction you need to bend it to get it exactly where you need it to go, so that it will
30 inches of gooseneck. That's more gooseneck than anyone else.
More than a goose, for sure.
Maximum.
Anyway,
yes.
Now how much would you pay? Well, guess what? It's $16.
Oh, man.
16, to quote Andy Ihnatko, to paraphrase Andy Ihnatko, 16 damn dollars for this. It's just super convenient. That's if you need it. But if you've ever been in one of those situations where you're like, God, I just need to put my iPhone right there, or I need that camera right there, this will do it. And so if you like, continuity camera is a great example. If you want to have a camera kind of off a little bit and it's an awkward place, if there's a place for clamping, you can do it.
I've ordered it. It will come tomorrow. I do have a question though. I see this, there's somebody's putting it on their breakfast in bed breakfast tray. That's kind of cool. But what is that gray rubber thing right there? What is that? What are they eating? What the hell is that? Did Shawway just throw something else in as a little
I think that
Easter
maybe
egg?
fell off of a camera during the photo shoot.
Is that a UFO? I think it's an unidentified aerial phenomenon.
It's weird.
That looks like it's a 180-minute egg.
Yeah, this breakfast, frankly, I'm going to say, not that appetizing.
Also, the idea that you'd have an iPhone on a long arm clamped to your little tray.
Also not
awkward.
appetizing. Yeah.
But again, it does point out the utility of it, which is if you can clamp somewhere, you can get that phone in a position wherever you want. So yeah, if you wanted to use this to like read or watch a video on your iPhone in bed and you could clamp it to the headboard, you totally could do that too, because it's really it's flexible.
It's lovely.
Flexible. That's what it's all
I just
about.
bought it. So now I bought the nanotubes.
$16 right
the
there.
mount. I got my iPhone. I'm getting close to having the perfect setup for
Getting
Mom's
close.
basement. Andy Ihnatko, your pick of the week.
You just jolted me into awareness, because I was looking at this pick of the week, which is an amazing book that I got on Kickstarter.
Will Harris.
It's available.
Yes.
Yes.
Our buddy Will.
It's 42, The Wildly Improbable Ideas of Douglas Adams, an amazing hardcover that is basically one of the most insightful looks into the minds of one of the most incredible minds that have ever put pen to paper. What they did was they had access to essentially all of his papers, all of his ephemera, all of his notes, all of his notebooks, covering from the start of his school life to like the very last things that he was working on and writing before he unfortunately was taken from us so young. And every page of it is like, you can't turn to a single page that doesn't like just draw you in. Like here is like, for instance, here is like, you'll recognize the image writer printing. This is some of his first draft from So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. A lot of this stuff, if you're a writer, is so ennobling and empowering, because a lot of this is like note cards he would write to himself, notebooks where on a shelf over there is a box of like beautiful and different spiral notebooks that I've bought like when traveling. Like I'm in Japan, so hey, there's a stationery store. Ooh, that's a beautiful like little notebook that'd be perfect for me to write in. And like I've got like a dozen of them where the first 3 pages are filled in, the rest are blank. and you show and the book shows us a lot of that stuff. A lot of the stuff like where the vomit drafts of some of his books are not just like where you see the story taking shape as he's writing it, but he's also writing notes to himself and like both encouraging himself and also sort of like scolding himself, saying, and then, oh God, I don't know what happens. Like maybe they wind up at Lord's Cricket Ground or something, maybe something better than that. But anyway, the only point of this is that we get them from here to there. And it's like, oh my God, he suffered. we know from his problems with deadlines. Oh, he suffered not more than his editors did, but he absolutely suffered. But man, it is such an insight into not only the course that his life took, but also the details of like how all of that went, what he was feeling and what he was thinking all the time. And there's a whole section of just like letters to Douglas Adams from like Neil Gaiman and Margot Buchanan, Stephen Fry, Robbie Stamp, people who knew him and like wish they could like talk to him again. And it's just such a, I mean, this isn't like a cheap sort of production. The pages are nice and thick. You know, it's as though they know that this is going to like wind up like on sofas, in beds, it's anywhere but like safe on a bookshelf.
It's going to wind up on a sofa that's lodged right in a way where it can't ever be removed from that place.
Yes,
it's a reference.
And you're not going to find out why you can't get the sofa out there until the very last chapter. Oh, it was explained, but not until the last chapter.
This is from
in a most delightful way.
This is from the publisher Unbound. Will Harris, who you've heard many times on our shows, this is his new project. He's become a book publisher, and they publish really interesting, unusual books like this, 42, The Wildly Improbable Ideas of Douglas Adams. Will told us about this. The editor, by the way, Kevin John Davies, is being widely praised for his good sense in the stuff that he picked, the stuff that he decided to not include, a treasure trove of Douglas Adams content. And people were very excited about this. So how did you get it? Because it says here it doesn't come out till September 19th. How did you get a copy?
I backed the Kickstarter, and it's one of the great things about backing books on Kickstarter, where I got an email saying, "Oh God, a piece of spam saying, oh, your UPS package has been delivered. Nice try. I'm not going to click on that." Like, oh wow, oh that's right, I did order this like a year and a half ago. I mean, I just could not be happier with this, and a lot of this is like just I'm not going to go into it over and over again, but like one
page
such
a great job. I think
one of my favorite pieces he did was his Last Chance to See book, which I think is one of the best things he wrote, was when he undertook like an expedition all over the world to find some of the most endangered species on the planet. And one page is, I mean, if you're a fan of Douglas Adams, you've already read the book, but here is like the typewritten page he made to himself of everything that he was packing. And here is the letter that he wrote to the BBC saying, "Hi, I've been given a $500,000 advance, but it's not enough to fund the expedition. Do you want to send like maybe a sound recorder and a photographer, and we can make this into a BBC series?" And they said, "Yes, we would very much like that." So it's just like, it really is just like saying, "Oh, by the way, here's a trunk full of papers from Douglas Adams. Feel free to rummage through it." And it's like, oh, I think I would like to do that.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
This is so cool. I'm so glad it exists. I'm thrilled that you kickstarted it. That's the whole premise of Unbound, is that these are nerdy volumes. These are nerdy volumes that you could go to a crowdfunding site and get people to support the publishing of it. And Will's done a great job. He sent me, I hope he'll send me this one. He sent me a stack of them, like video games, The Life and Extra Lives of a Professional Nerd, or Taming Gaming by Andy Robertson, or Shareware Heroes. But my favorite, I think, is this, Things I Learned from Mario's Butt. It's pictures of buttocks from video games. That's so you could see going to Simon & Schuster and pitching this and them saying, no. But to Will Harris's credit,
I know that was somebody's PhD thesis that they turned into a book.
You think?
What field did they get the PhD in? That's what I want to know.
But ecology. So it is just a series of bottoms from video games. It's subtitled A Series of Gaming Butt Critiques. So there you go.
You want to have that on the coffee table when your girlfriend or boyfriend or spouse's parents are coming to visit for the first time.
This is kind of cool. This is an atlas of cities from video games, virtual cities from games. I mean, this is so cool. I'm so glad. I don't know if you've met Will in your travels around Twit. Wonderful fellow who has done many things. But this is his latest venture, and I think it's going to be his most successful.
Again, I could not possibly be happier with this book.
So cool. 42. You can pre-order it on Amazon now, or you can go to the Kickstarter. It's actually
ships in just a couple of weeks.
Yep, September 19th. Oh, I'm reading some really sterling reviews. This is really a good job. We're going to cap things off here with Mr. Alex Lindsay. And
another book.
Yeah.
So the book that I'm going to recommend, I go to a bookstore probably once or twice a month. There is a bookstore in Berkeley called Builders Bookstore.
Yeah, and, that's famous. Yeah.
It's my favorite bookstore.
Yeah.
And it's just design stuff. So it's design, architecture, some cooking, some, garden design, but it has all these technical manuals on the back. And it's still surviving. Still, there's still 5 or 6 people every time you walk into the tiny little store on 4th Street. And I go in and I take my kids. So I go in with the kids, and the rule is they can buy any book they want. And I allow myself to buy a book when I'm there. And it's the only time I buy physical books. And I keep on buying different books from the same person. And I thought I should probably recommend it because I don't buy a lot of books. And it's a series. The one that I put in here was 101 Things I Learned in Product Design School. And it's kind of like really short. Like this isn't like a big, heavy, so I have these books laying around and I open one of them every morning to think about it. So it's kind of like my little pattern of I get up in the morning and I read one that might say, shapes are loaded, or elegance is the opposite of extravagance. And then there's a bunch of there's a description, so one of them might be design is a physical act. Design requires deep reflection, but one cannot design in purely cognitive thinking mode. Active doing helps us figure out what the thing is about, right? Anyway, so what happened is this guy Matthew Frederick, he has all these 101 things I learned about something, right? And there's like 10 of these or 15 of these books. And they're about architecture, psychology, all kinds of different culinary school. And what I love is they've just distilled these ideas down into something that doesn't take a lot of time, but I can open it up. They're independent thoughts that I can open up and kind of, I wouldn't say meditate on, but I usually read whatever I read right before I make breakfast, which takes a little time because I like making breakfast. So, and I just love these books. And so they're about, they're like $10 on Kindle, but I wouldn't recommend getting them on Kindle because I've realized I don't read them when they're on Kindle. I read them when they're stacked on my desk. Mm-hmm. And so, so there's something about that I bought a couple of them on Kindle and I end up rebuying them there's something about them sitting here and me picking one up and just opening it up while I'm, when I'm just getting ready. I get up about 4. so I get up and I open it up while I'm just getting things started to set up before I go do other things. And I just find there's something about them it's really, really, it's just really inspiring, so I know that it seems simple. At first I thought they were kind of junk books, it's just kind of, you got a bunch of cute, but what he's done is he partners with, it's always like he partners with people who are in that industry. And then they try to figure out how to distill down as best I can tell. It's not like I've ever talked to him or I don't know the guy. But that's what it feels like. He works with someone in the industry and tries to distill things to think about. And it doesn't just affect product design. It just helps you think about those things. So anyway.
He's done this longer than we've been doing Twit, since 2007. Yeah.
Yeah.
Architecture school, film school, engineering school, 101 Things I Learned in Product Design School. Matthew Frederick. What a great idea. He's got culinary school. I mean, business.
And it's all things that apply to life. Not, I wouldn't look at it like, oh, I'm going to architecture, I should do this. It's distilled thoughts, like individual thoughts into something. There's always this, I wrote you a long letter because I didn't have time to write you a short one. Well, he took the time to write 101 short ones for each one of these things, and distill like ideas. And when I looked at I can't remember a specific one from film school, and I don't have that book right within arm's length, but I was like, yeah, these are all great. Like as someone who, when he's in an area that I know know
it. Yeah.
I'm like, these are what
he's got one for law school. I wonder if I could pass the bar after I read.
Anyway, it's a
Very
really great
cool.
series.
Yeah. And start with the 101 Things I Learned in Product Design School. It's on
and if you're,
Amazon, or
and
go
again,
to the Builder's Bookstore and support your local independent.
It's the reason I buy them from there.
Yeah.
Specifically because I
don't
want
buy them from Amazon.
The distinction is that it's curated in a way that I can browse great books.
Right.
There's a 50% chance I'll like almost every book that's in that bookstore. And I wouldn't just find it searching the web, or searching Amazon, or knowing, like, if I want to, I go there to explore books. And I take my kids there to explore books. And I think it's important that we keep on bookstore. I don't think that every bookstore has to stay in business, but I think bookstores like that, that are carefully curated, I think we need to support. So if you're in the Bay Area, you should go to the Builders Bookstore on 4th Street. It's right next to the Apple Store, and buy a book.
Wow, I think I might buy them all. These look great.
They're so good.
These look so
I haven't
good.
pulled the trigger. Like I don't know why I haven't bought them all. It's not like they're that expensive, but I keep on going, well, I'll buy this one and work through it before. And I've got like 5 of them now. So it's, they're all really good.
There are only 2 ways to cook. This is from the culinary school: dry cooking or moist cooking. That's it. It's easy. It's simple.
Just like cat food.
Dry or wet. Very good, Andy. You're right. That is that for this edition of MacBreak Weekly. Next week, we will have much to discuss. Although, what do you think, Jason? Will there be surprises on Tuesday?
I don't know. I mean, little surprises. There are always little surprises, but I think that iPhone, Apple Watch, maybe some update to like AirPods is probably the model, and then they'll save some stuff for next month. But
nothing.
The
Nothing. We're going to go.
Always a surprise.
Oh my God! Can you believe it?
I think I'm looking. I mean, what I'm looking forward to is the details of, especially if they do that periscope camera.
Yeah.
Like, how do they brand that? How do they describe that? What is the interface? What are the little Apple touches that make that different from what we've seen elsewhere? Because it's all about the details.
Will there be
you're
an
so
Ultra?
right. They're gonna put a name on the periscope camera so that you don't, to make it think as though they invented this thing and it never existed before they did it.
Ultra
I
zoom.
think it's an open question whether the word periscope is even uttered in the thing, right? Because no, it will be. Mike Hurley on our podcast earlier this week suggested that it would be like the magic optics or magic. Again, they'll brand it. There'll be a brand name for it.
We call it the Newton lens, just as Sir Isaac Newton mastered optics.
The Galileo process.
Who was it that ground his own lenses? Was it Kepler? That grounded his own lenses so he could observe the rotation of the planets. Well, we'll find out. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Join us for that live stream immediately after a MacBreak. Jason Snell, sans Jason Snell, I'm sad to say, MacBreak Weekly. But we'll get Jason on the following week and find out what he thinks, because he's going to get hands-on next Tuesday, which is exciting. That's really cool. Thank you, Jason. You can find Jason at sixcolors.com, sixcolors.com/Jason for all of his podcasts. What's the name of the one you do with Mr. Hurley on relay.fm?
It's called Upgrade, and it's every Monday, and we have fun. We did a draft where we try to predict exactly what will happen, and then next week we will score the draft and talk about everything else.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But the most important thing is who won the draft. It's very important.
We do a bingo
Also
card,
iPhones.
but I think a draft sounds more exciting.
We try. we try to keep it interesting.
Very cool. So listen to Monday's episode of Upgrade so that you'll be prepared when the day comes, the day arrives. Thank you, Jason. Andy Ihnatko, when are you going to be on GBH next?
Next Friday at 12:30 at the Boston Public Library. So come on down, buy yourself a cup of coffee and a lovely trash brownie, trash cookie, meaning every ingredient in the big cookie, which is good.
It's not
bad.
for the trash. It is. That's a bad
nutritionally, it's very iffy. However, it's delicious. But yeah, around 12:30, or listen to it live or later at WGBHnews.org.
Ihnatko. I have no idea how to spell Ihnatko. That's how you remember it. That's the mnemonic. Thank you, Andrew. I'll see you next week.
Yes, absolutely. I can bring lights.
I got lights. I'm thinking I should meet you not for work, but go to a fine diner.
Okay.
In your neck of the woods.
We will make that happen.
Clam Cakes at Dune Brothers, if they're still open after Labor Day, that's the place.
we will. There are options that we will pursue. We will make that happen. I will adjust to your incredibly busy schedule as a titan of communications.
It's actually not that busy,
and as a loving son.
It's not busy at all. I look forward to seeing you. And
also, if my visits to relatives are anything to be, there's probably a certain day where they're going to say, "So, Andy, you got any plans for today? That I got to be here. I got to stay here all day long. But do you have any plans to leave?"
Not Mom. Mom will be holding on tight, but I will be. Nice. I will want a little breather once in a while. Mr. Alex Lindsay, of course, Office Hours does their own thing for Apple events, and you're going to want to be there for the excitement. officehours.global. I don't know why I'm promoting a competitor, but because it's better. You're going to do a better job.
It's just different. It's good. Different. We had peak Office Hours last week. We had a great thing about project management on Monday. Stu Mashwitz, my old buddy from ILM, was on Tuesday. Robert Scoville from Avid was talking about surround sound on Wednesday. Talk about plates, how you do movie plates on Thursday. And on Friday, we had world experts for NDI workflows, from like 5 different countries,
wow.
discussing stuff. It was really a great one. And then we capped it all off with having Andy on graymatter.show.
Oh,
so
yay.
That episode just came out today. So, and it was a fantastic conversation.
A lot of great questions. Thank you, everybody who sent in questions.
I'm going to guess that Andy's a pretty good raconteur.
Yeah.
I don't know why I think that.
Well, my time as one of the hangers-on of Cole Porter left me with a lot of stories. Let me tell you.
What is the URL? Because I'm going to the wrong Gray Matter.
Graymatter.show is the URL there. And
show. There we go.
And it is anyway. So Andy's up there right now, and you can download those podcasts, and it's a really great one. So nice. I would highly recommend checking Andy out.
Michael Krasny hosts Gray Matter, episode 49 in season 1 with Andy and Notco. And of course, if you want to be at Office Hours anytime this week, what is IBC? The countdown to IBC has started.
Yeah, so we're covering. We have a team, our European team. We're covering more and more events, right? So we're slowly ramping event coverage up. And rethinking it, like what's the best way to bring people to events? And so I did SIGGRAPH a couple of weeks ago with a team down in LA, and we did NAB and Cinegear, and we have a European team is covering IBC next week. So the end of next week is that's basically the NAB of Europe. So all the video stuff, video graphics, everything. And so it's at the RAI in Amsterdam, and so there's a whole separate team that's going to be managing that. After hours, before office hours on Friday, they'll be wandering around kind of a more informal version of that. And then on office hours on Saturday, just during our normal office hours time, they'll be coming in live from IBC. So they're covering that. So it should be great. It's a great team, and it's a really fun. I mean, it's different. It's like NAB, but European, just cooler in some ways. It's a hard one to cover because the RAI is so complex. I don't know if you've ever been to the RAI, but it's complex.
I have
It's hard to figure out where you are all the time. But we're looking forward to it. They did it last year. They did a fantastic job. And so that's what we're building up for. And then we'll be doing NAB a month later in New York. So that'll be the next.
Nice. Look forward to this. This is going to be something. Best thing to do to go to officehours.global. And you can see all of the many multifarious things Alex
if you sign up there, it'll say join here, and you sign up there, then you get an email every day. It tells you what we're doing, because we're doing something different every day. So you'll get an update.
You can join the mailing list. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex Lindsay, Andy Ihnatko, Jason Snell. Thanks to all of you who have joined us. Thanks to our Club Twit members. I have many thanks. Thanks to John Ashley, our producer and board op. Thanks to John Slanina, the other John, who is our studio manager. Thanks to Burke McQuinn, who keeps the equipment running. Thanks to our CEO, Lisa Laporte. And thanks most of all to you for being here. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That would be 1800, or is it 19? No, 1800 UTC. I guess, summertime's coming for us next month, I believe, but some of you may have already gone to summertime. So use or gone off summertime, I should say. Use the UTC time, 1800 UTC. Because we move around. If you want to watch live.twit.tv is the place to be. chat with us. Open to all our IRC. You can use a browser to go to irc.twit.tv. Of course, if you're in the club, get behind the velvet rope into the Club Twit discourse. We talk there as well. After the fact, on-demand versions of all of our shows available at our website, in this case, twit.tv/MBW for MacBreak Weekly. When you're there, you'll also see a link to our YouTube channel dedicated to MacBreak Weekly. We've got audio and video. Silly me. You also can subscribe. There are a link to a couple of different podcatchers, or choose your own and search for MacBreak Weekly. If you subscribe, you'll have it by the end of the day, Tuesday, just in time for your Wednesday morning listening. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Now it is my sad duty to say, get back to work. Break time's over. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Oh, hey, that's a really nice iPhone you have there. You totally picked the right color. Hey, since you do use an iPhone and maybe use an iPad or an Apple Watch or an Apple TV, well, you should check out iOS Today. It's a show that I, Micah Sargent, and my co-host Rosemary Orchard host every Tuesday right here on the Twit Network. It covers all things iOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, watchOS, iPadOS. It's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we love to give you tips and tricks about making the most of those devices, checking out great apps and services, and answering your tech questions. I hope you check it out.